Hey there, it's Elliott, and welcome back to the channel. Today I wanted to talk about a warm-up routine that I've been doing for a little over a month now. It started when it was getting cold here in Amsterdam, and I had never been used to being cold for about 5 years because I was living in LA, and it just doesn't get cold there, or in comparison. And so I never really had to warm up in LA. I could just start playing, and I would be warm after about 5 minutes, if not as soon as I touched the guitar. Here, though, you step away from the guitar for a little while, the guitar gets cold. Everything gets cold. Your muscles get a little tight. And there was a few times when I would go for something a little bit fast, and I would go, wow, like I'm tense. I'm tense, the guitar's tense, like it's not happening. There are a few times where I was like, I know this could lead to an actual strain or something like that, and I should be more careful. I remember in my undergrad, I almost got like a tendinitis thing, like the tendon on my first finger started to get really tight, so I'm always super careful. I go on red alert real quick anytime there's any kind of tension or any kind of muscle ache. So again, it started getting cold, I needed warm-ups, and I didn't really want to go through a lot of the same warm-ups that we've all seen. They're plenty good, but I've just done them for years, like the kind of, right? Like the chromatic thing, the whatever, like there's, you could do like those are good, but I feel like, at least I don't know about you, but for me, they do the same motion. Even if I do a different, finger pattern or something like that, they're doing the same motion in the sense that all I'm doing here is raising and lowering my fingers, right? I'm not actually, working out anything here. I'm not like my wrist isn't getting warm, just literally this motion is getting warm. That's it. To be fair, I know there's John Petrucci's Rock Discipline where you can get your hand into some pretty crazy patterns and shapes, and it's a much better workout, but that's also like a 2-hour long DVD, and I don't really want to warm up for 2 hours. So what I've been doing for the last month or so is going counterclockwise on the circle of fifths, or I don't know, the circle of fourths or whatever. It's just C, F, B flat, E flat, and running through one mode per day. One of the 7 major modes, one of the ones that I might use from the melodic minor, one of the ones that I might use from harmonic minor, whole tone, half whole diminished, etc., and going through each interval, going up and down the scale, and then in thirds, and then in fourths, fifths, sixths, and sevenths. I don't do ninths, tenths, or whatever, but 1 through 7. It was initially just a random idea, and I thought it would be kind of a cool way to get back into skipping strings, because as you know from previous videos of mine, I like kind of combining exercises, not just doing it's either picking or this or legato or that. Like if I can combine a few and make the most of my time, I will. So here the thirds obviously are just adjacent strings, sometimes the same string. Fourths, it's just mainly adjacent strings. And then in fifths, there's string skipping. And then obviously sixths, it's mostly string skipping. And then sevenths, definitely. Right? And getting used to doing this up and down, and then switching to the key of F. And most importantly, here's the important part, stay in the same area of the guitar. So if you do the cage system, for instance, that might be, pattern 2, right? But then it'd be pattern 5 of F, pattern, whatever G is, 3 of B flat, 1 of E flat, 4 of A flat. Obviously for things that don't just easily fit in that area, like D flat or F sharp, you just move a little bit, and same thing like F, you would do pattern 5, F sharp, you do pattern 5, C, you do pattern 2, D flat, you do pattern 2. If you know the cage system, fantastic. If you don't, I'd highly recommend learning it. Although if you know your scales in another way, just not the cage system, it's all about just where you find your roots, whether it's here, 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 right, which string set. Let me show you how it goes. We'll do C to F, just a regular Ionian or major scale. Right, only hitting the top of the pattern. Switching to thirds. picking everything, and I'm also sometimes hybrid picking as well. So I'm kind of working on a few things consciously. Like if I wanted to just work on picking, I would just do, so we're doing fourths now. Sometimes switching directions of those fourths, right? But then if I want to do hybrid again, let's go to fifths. Right, let's do 6, and this is where we get to that fun little part where it really loosens up the right wrist, or whatever your picking hand is, to do that string skipping, and make sure not to tighten everything and like rush it, but keep it like bouncy and loose. Let me try that again. There we go. And also you start developing like a favorite interval. I know that sounds incredibly nerdy, but like whatever. Certain times when you listen to the same interval over and over again, you can kind of develop like I like hearing that. You kind of a preference of which interval you want to hear. And for me, sevenths sound awesome. Let's check it out. I don't know what it is, but I enjoy them a lot. And that's one of the nice things that comes around, like I know I generally have leaned toward voicings like this or that, little lines that kind of like this. Right? It's 1, 3, 7. But it's nice to remember kind of what I like about it and be really familiar with all the shapes over the neck. Like I know them a bit, and I think I know them pretty well, but it's nice to have a refresh, because then it leads to things like this. Like say I want to go 1, 4, 5, 6, 4, 1, I don't know, whatever, in the key of B. There's 1. It's a pretty mysterious 1 versus, which is a much more normal way to go. Most mysterious 4 ever. Usually it would be, and now it's, right? So major 7, dominant 7, minor 7 or dominant 7, whatever. Major 7, major 7. Resolve it like that. So everything was like a 7th interval, and I've spent so much more time with them. It's kind of reinvigorated like a fascination with it. Say we're done with C now. We've gone through all those intervals, and now we move to F. Instead of moving down here, we just start closest F. Right, and then thirds. Obviously things change a little bit. Like something like this, as far as fourths. Say we're all the way down here on the lower end of the neck in F, doing fourths. I might end up at something like that. So my ring and pinky. Or I would do a string skipping thing in that scenario. And that kind of jump is really not something I think about a lot, because it's not super ergonomic, but it is making me think in new ways. It's making me kind of go, hey, you've spent a lot of time in this pattern. I've played plenty of songs in F, and I don't choose those fingerings because they're tough. And I also don't play a bunch of fourths over them. So over a song in F, I might go like, but I might not think of going. If I wanted to make that leap, I would do it here or and not here. But through this exercise, because I know I am trying to just like stretch my hand a little bit, that kind of motion, that kind of fingering becomes totally okay. It is certainly stretching. So by doing that, all of a sudden these fingerings become more natural to me, and I become just a bit more fluid. All of a sudden, these uncomfortable jumps that I normally wouldn't do because most licks don't do that, become more natural. All of a sudden I become a bit more fluid when improvising, a bit more, I have more on the table creatively if I'm soloing. I won't get so every now and again when you're playing something and you end up in an awkward fingering, you can kind of slip up, take a second, kind of get back into it. And by doing this, there's that half second or third of a second that I actually get to save. I don't have to hesitate. Let's say we go into fifths. It starts sounding very peaceful. Here again, I'm doing string skipping for fifths because instead of doing this, I want to keep it in one area. So I'm going. Right? Oops, sorry. And doing that with all the intervals in all the different areas really gets my hand is, not that I was already warmed up, but this is already still, I can kind of feel like it's a different kind of muscle movements. It's almost like I did yoga for my hand or something. This may seem a bit intense for people, and I totally get it. I completely empathize, but I'd highly recommend you rise to the occasion, rise to the challenge, and just give yourself a realistic time frame. If you think about it, all right, I'm going to try this and learn these patterns and learn where I'm at on the fretboard, learn where the notes are. In a year's time, you're not even going to recognize yourself when you look back. For those who this exercise might seem a bit rudimentary, let me make a case for it. I went to undergrad at the very normal time of right after high school. I went to Berkeley and, I did all my, academic kind of studious guitar work there. And then instead of going to a master's program afterwards, I just moved to New York with the goal of being a professional musician, became one, then moved to LA, became one there. And then while in LA, I actually got into a master's program because I wanted to teach at a college one day. And it's better to have a master's degree in that scenario. At the end of every semester at music school, there's a proficiency exam of sorts. Make sure, you're staying up on your scales, arpeggios, sight reading, learning solos and songs, etc. And being back in that atmosphere was fantastic. Certainly stressful sometimes, I guess. At no gig ever is someone going, E. Dorian, go. It's a kind of an unusual atmosphere when they're testing you on scales and everything like that. And after being in a gigging atmosphere for a while, you also get used to maybe, I don't know, maybe this is the word to say it, shortcuts or practical applications. I never really deal with Phrygian on gigs. It doesn't come up that often. It can come up, but it doesn't come up that often where you need to solo over. At least in my life, it didn't come up a surprising amount. So in that scenario, I might think, I'll just outline the chords as they go. Or I might think, F Lydian basically. And then just go back to the E. Or I might think E pentatonic, minor pentatonic. And then when the D comes, and I'm really switching between E minor pentatonic and D minor pentatonic. Much easier than going when when do I use that flat 6 and that flat 9 tastefully over which chord, depending on whatever who's playing. Like, I'm not thinking of the position. If I'm thinking of something like this, I might, play it in a way that makes sense at that moment to me. Like, and in that scenario at school, I would be like, nope, I said position 2. And it's like, oh, right. Right? Do I go for the flat 9 here? Or do I go for it here? That kind of thing is not what comes up on a gig. Usually if it's like, hey, does it sound good? Great, wonderful. Being in that more like rigid setting was actually really beneficial. Having a chance to play some more esoteric music and having classmates who are also thinking about scales and arpeggios really reinvigorated the nerdy side of guitar for me, and I was really actually happy to experience that and go like, oh yeah, I love everything about this instrument. This is wonderful. And it's been a side that I've really enjoyed getting to share on this channel. And a last thing to the more experienced players, I remember in my lesson with Julian Lodge, he mentioned that all of the greats, Pat Metheny's, etc., in my eyes, him, still work on fundamentals all the time. Presumably because there's so much to learn and there's so much to get better at in those fundamentals. I'm not saying I'm there, but I am saying that by going through this exercise or this warm-up or whatever, this scale and interval exercise, sometimes arpeggio exercise, I've really kind of dusted off some of the cobwebs, I guess, that can, arise when you don't have to do this that often, when you have other things to do. And I'd highly recommend, just try it for a month. Try it for a month, and please let me know in the comments, if you have a great time with it, if you hate it, whatever. In any case, I hope you have a great week of guitar. Thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you all next week.